That's the attitude of most people. But once you hold a squirrel in your hand, you get a new, you know,
I don't know if I need to do that. I think I can live with.
I'll do it for you.
I I can live without holding a squirrel. Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
Well, I love it.
The MS Positive podcast is a platform where people living with multiple sclerosis come to share everything else they do with their lives aside from being an MS patient. Among our guests are artists, singers, bloggers, actors, authors, DJs, and much more. And yeah, also health professionals because we have to stay in the know. We're more than MS. Today we have Melissa Defren. She is a retired horticultural technician who founded her own landscaping company specializing in interior tropical plants at the age of 24, shortly after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. At first, she was misdiagnosed with Lyme disease and lupus. After an MRI and a spinal tap, she was finally diagnosed with MS. MS did not stop her from growing her business and continued to work for 25 years. Becoming a vegetarian and exercising were key to keeping the disease at bay. Welcome to the show, Melissa. How are you?
I'm well. Hey, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Melissa, so like I said in the introduction, you were diagnosed with Lyme disease and lupus. Usually, people, or very often, people with multiple sclerosis are misdiagnosed with Lyme disease, especially from the area that you come from in the States. So, when you were misdiagnosed, did they put you on a treatment for either of those diseases or not?
No, and I was a landscaper, an exterior landscaper at that time. So Lyme disease just made sense because I was always out in the field, in the thick of it. So they stuck with Lyme disease for a couple of years. Actually, I was not treated, and my symptoms were it was relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis at that point. So I wasn't feeling bad every single day. It's just that the symptoms became weirder and weirder, as you know, with multiple sclerosis. And finally, one doctor really took heed and started doing the necessary tests to diagnose me. And lo and behold, it was multiple sclerosis.
How long did that process take to diagnose you with MS?
I feel as if it took at least 2 years to get a proper diagnosis.
What year were you officially diagnosed?
I want to say around 92, 93, something like that.
That's interesting because in 93 was the first DMT was approved in 1993. So were you started on a DMT right away? If so, which one was it?
It was Copaxone, and I was deathly allergic to it. I had a very bad reaction to that. And from there, I went on to Rebif and eventually on an infusion. I think they called it Tysabri. I was on that for around 13 years. And then I was positively diagnosed with JC virus, which comes along with that infusion. So they had to take me off of that. And I was doing really well because, again, I became a vegetarian and an avid exercise. I was exercising and just clean living. So I stopped medicine for at least a decade. I just went off and just did everything naturally.
Oh, wow. And you didn't have any relapses?
It was relapsing, remitting at that point. So I definitely had a couple of weeks here and there where mostly my legs are affected. So I wasn't able to walk very well. And I did go back onto medicine. So hopefully it worked.
So you are currently on medication, right?
Yes, a Bugio. I just took my first MRI and I'll get my results in about a week. So we'll see if it's working. And again, it's a pill. It's a lot less invasive than an infusion or a injection. And that's why I agreed to go back on medicine.
You had a landscaping business for 25 years, specializing in interior tropical plants. You were able to work those 25 years after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Did you get any help? Like, did you have any assistance? How do you manage? Because it sounds to me like it requires physical work. How did you manage?
I had what is called a water machine, which is basically a big water tank, held 9 gallons of water, and it was on wheels and it was upright and it acted as a walker for me. So I led a very normal life with multiple sclerosis because of this water machine. I was able to use it as a walker and do my corporations. And it was also great exercise for me. I had to lift it in and out of the car several times a day, and then taking care of the plants. There was a lot of, a lot of walking and lifting and whatever, was required of a plant lady.
Yeah, we make it work, right? We make it work. So that's a very creative modification to
Yeah,
use your water tank as a walker, right? I mean, never heard
absolutely.
of that one. First one for me. So
I know. Very cool. And again, I felt very normal. Like if I had my water machine, I didn't have a cane or a walker, and was nobody would know, kind of
nobody would
thing.
know. Okay.
Right, right. And I was perfectly capable with that machine.
That's great. I mean, that's very creative. Have you noticed that? Have you deteriorated? You've been living with multiple sclerosis for 30 years. You took the vegetarian and the clean lifestyle, which is very popular among people with multiple sclerosis. Tell us your experience with that, because a lot of people want to know how does the organic diet approach works when you live with multiple sclerosis. A lot of people take that route, and instead of getting on a DMT, they use that.
I am a true advocate of clean living, quote unquote, which basically means a great diet filled with plants and fruit. I haven't eaten meat in over 30 years. At the same time, I try to get at least 6 to 7,000 steps 3 or 4 days a week, and light weights. So exercise, great diet, and the main thing for me, and we can go into this a little later, is keeping my stress level as low as possible. My mother passed away very suddenly 14 years ago, and the stress of her death basically exacerbated my MS, and I lost the use of my left leg and have been walking with a cane ever since. And that was 14 years ago. Before my mother passed, I was literally running on the treadmill at a 7.0 weeks before. So I try to let everything roll off my back. And that was partly why I got out of the business. I mean, the pandemic brought my business down, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the stress. I needed to get away from that. So those are the three things that I do, other than trying to get plenty of sleep to keep healthy. And it's worked. I feel great.
I agree 100%. Stress, it triggers all the symptoms and it makes MS worse. No doubt. I relate to your story. I also lost my mom when I was, long time ago, when I was 18. That was when I ruled the world.
Exactly. And you
Um,
still do.
well, thanks.
You do.
It was a very stressful situation. I would say the most stressful situation I ever went through. I had this nervous breakdown at the moment, and I know that that's what set the foundation for the onset of MS. In my case, what the worst part was that state of mind, or that mental state or emotional state that I was at the moment, lasted for, it took years to go away. It wasn't something that I could channel. So I was under that stress for, I don't know, maybe 5 years. It took me a long time to move on from it. So I know for sure that was the first thing that triggered the first symptoms. I know that I've had MS probably since I was a little girl. Now that I, know what symptoms are, and I look back and things make sense, click. I had not shown any symptoms. Ever since I went through that experience, I had my first symptom when I was 19, which was the Lermits.
What is,
When you
oh, yes,
yeah, bring
yes.
your head down and you feel
And
that
everything's zapped.
zapping down your spinal cord. That was my first official symptom, and actually, during a second opinion that I had with a very well-known neurologist, Dr. Aaron Buster, he actually put the stamp on that event as my first official multiple sclerosis symptom, and he said, instead of 8 years, you've had MS for at least 26 years. So it's been a long time too that I've been living with MS. That didn't mean that I didn't have multiple sclerosis. It was just brewing stage, which is
Brewing.
typical, and
Exactly.
it's being studied right now with more detail, or they are paying more attention to that stage now to try to diagnose people before the actual symptoms show. Yeah, definitely agree with the avoiding the stress, and relate very much to your story. So have a lot of empathy for you. Tell me about this new thing that you took on, which is painting. And that is something that you just recently started to navigate. And it was after multiple sclerosis, but it has been like a love for art that you've had since you were younger. And now you decided this is the right time.
Yes, well, 2.5 years ago, when the pandemic started and everybody was scrambling, not knowing what to do, and we all had to start working from home, I basically lost 50 accounts in one day. And I held on to the business for a good year after that. And eventually, it just didn't make sense anymore. So, my brother offered to buy me a house here in North Carolina, and I retired and went on disability at the age of 48, 49. And, I was a plant lady my entire life. I was running this wonderful business for all those years. And all of a sudden, I needed to find a new purpose. I was very young to retire, quote unquote. But I do love art. I've always had a creative mind. I've always wanted to, put that to canvas. So I started watching a lot of YouTube tutorials and a lot of Bob Ross, and just put brush to canvas. And I find that when I am painting, I'm in a calm, complete zone. I just love it. And I'm not very good, but it's definitely become an outlet and a hobby. And I find a lot of joy in that. And I just want to get better and better. And now I attend art shows. I surround myself with creative people that are also artists. And I'll just see where that journey takes me. And it fills my time and it gives me purpose. So that's where the art came in. I actually have dabbled with plants since I retired. I'll get back to them because I do love plants, but
Well, when I buy my mansion, you might design what you call those rooms where people go and
arboretum.
I meant to say like those rooms where people go and just relax and they're like a little not spa, but my intention is to have one of those rooms so I can go in there and meditate. How about that? Do you meditate?
I That's a very recent thing for me. I have a good friend that is into yoga, meditation, and breathing, and we talk about it all the time. And she's constantly sending me emails and clips. So yes, I have begun putting apps on my phone for guided meditation, and I'm not that great at it, not yet, but I'll get there.
Well, that's the good thing about yoga and meditation is your own practice. There is no rules, there's no patterns to follow, there's no wrong or right. It's just your own practice. I find it to be, very beneficial to
Yeah,
bring the stress levels down. So,
I hear wonderful things about it. I just haven't gotten there yet.
yeah, it takes time. It takes time. It's not
Yeah,
something that you can just incorporate just like that. It
right,
takes practice. And that's
right.
all
It
it is. It's
does.
a practice.
And I put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, and you're not, when it comes to meditation, you're supposed to be able to clear your mind, or as my friend calls it, let the monkey in and let the monkey out. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, be present, be in the moment, right? And it's not that easy to quiet the mind. So don't be so hard on yourself. It takes years. It takes years. So I know that you like the wildlife a lot. With the organization Our Wild Neighbors, you volunteer transporting injured wildlife and putting them back into nature. Can you share that with us?
So I'm a vegetarian because obviously for health reasons, that's what started it, but also for my love, love, love of all animals. I love animals very much. And most people would think dogs and cats. I do love dogs and cats, but they're the wildlife is vulnerable to human impact, let's say. So I got involved with this organization called Our Wild Neighbors, and they basically rehab mostly squirrels, possums, turtles, hawks, eagles. I mean, I've had a menagerie in my back seat before. So anytime a wild animal like that gets injured, most of the time people will bring them to like an emergency vet. They don't know what to do with them. And the emergency vet will take them in and they will call us. I will go pick the animal up, bring them back to the rehab center, and we give them the greatest shot at life, you know, curing them or helping them heal, feeding them, anything it takes to get them back out into the wild. It's so cool. I mean, I feed little baby squirrels in my palm of my hand.
Wow.
You know, it gives you a new appreciation when you see the squirrels fluttering outside. It gives you a new appreciation for them. It's awesome.
I have plenty of squirrels in front of my house, and you know what? They look cute, but I keep my distance.
That's the attitude of most people. But once you hold a squirrel in your hand, you get a new, you know,
I don't know if I need to do that. I think I can live with.
I'll do it for you.
I I can live without holding a squirrel. Let's put it that
Okay.
way.
Well, I love it. I do.
And is that new? Is that new for you, or have you did you do that before you retire, or where does it come from?
Everything that you and I are discussing has come after shutting the business down and moving to North Carolina.
Oh, what a
I have to fill my
switch!
days. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, I'm young enough that I should still be working, and when I'm not working, I have to figure something else to do that brings me joy, like the plant business did, and to give back to the community. You know, that's important, I think.
All these things are part of our healing process. During this process is when we find our purpose.
Correct.
Many good things have come out after multiple sclerosis, so it has I'm glad that you are sharing that because it's showing, how you turn something that could have been like a negative experience, and you turn it into something that fills your soul. You feel better about yourself. And like you said, you give back and it helps you heal. I mean, it's not just a physical part that we have to nurture, correct?
Yes, MS does not define who I am. It is something that I obviously have to deal with, and I didn't have a choice. But what I do have a choice with is how I handle it and how I improve the quality of my life. I'm very fortunate because I do not have a lot of pain with MS, and I think that if I did, it would may hold me back more than it is. I do walk with a cane or a walker, but as long as I have those walking aids, I can do pretty much anything you can do, or the average person, let's say. Uncomfortable is more of a term that I can relate to.
But even though you don't have pain, what are your limitations? How has MS affected you? Like, do you have any physical limitations?
I have what they call it drop foot. I'm sure you've
Oh,
heard the term.
yeah. Dead foot in my case. Mine's
Yeah,
dead.
I call it dead leg. I call it dead leg. And I told you before my mother passed away, I was running on the treadmill. So now I just say my mother took my leg up to heaven with her. So I have one bad leg. My left leg doesn't work. I have to do everything with it manually. I can still walk because, again, I use the walker or the cane. The rest of my body works at almost 100%. So it's one leg. It's not going to hold me back.
Do you wear an AFO?
I do, yes, and that actually helps tremendously.
It is good.
It keeps your foot kind of straight,
Yes.
keeps me from tripping. I used to trip, I used to fall. With the AFO, I'm much better.
You see, the AFO was not enough for me in my case because like I said, I have dead foot instead of drop foot. And so I wear a KAFO, but my problem, which is up all the way to my hip, the reason is because I have severe weakness. And so my weakness comes from my hip, which are the biggest muscles. That they are the hardest muscles to strengthen when you are exercising. So it's a very long process to recovery. And so we know that, at least in my case, MS deteriorates me faster than I can recover. And so years has been, of physical therapy, exercise, yoga, and I still ended up wearing a KAFO because the weakness got worsened throughout the years. I walk, I am ambulatory, I can move around, but when I take it off, I completely drag my leg because of the weakness. Yeah, in my case, I call it dead foot because I can't really do anything with it. I don't wiggle my toes. I don't have dorsiflexion, which is moving your foot up and down. I drag it. I have been lucky. I have not broken any bones. I don't have any fractures, but I know many people that have fractures on their toes. Living with drop foot is not fun. So yeah, wear an AFO, ask for it. A lot of people don't even know that exists. It's a good assistance, a mobility assistance, and don't be embarrassed of wearing it.
No, I love it.
I know some people that don't wear the AFO because they get embarrassed.
It's funny. I actually wear mine on the outside of my pants as much as possible so that it is almost an explanation to people as to why I'm walking the way I do. I feel like it's like shouting out, like I have an injury, quote unquote. People ask you all the time, what happened to your knee? What happened to your leg? What happened to your foot?
Did you have surgery? I had surgery too.
Exactly. That too.
I get that all the time.
But at the AFO, and first of all, when I take it off, let's say at night, I walk terrible. I walk completely, like you said, with your foot kind of falls under you, and you can almost break your toes. And it's made a huge difference. When I got it, the neurologist said this will retrain your brain, whatever that means. But I think he's right.
In a way, I don't agree 100% with that because your foot is restricted.
When I walk without it, and I've only had it 2 years, I would radiate out in order to pick up my leg enough to move forward. And with the AFO, I'm able to actually walk in a straight line.
It makes a huge difference, definitely. Yes. I've had the standard AFOs, and circling back to what I was saying, the foot is restricted inside that standard sturdy piece. And so doesn't allow the dynamic movement of your ankle, which is key for your walk. And so it causes atrophy and spasticity in that area. So, yeah, in a way, you are retraining your brain, but at the same time, there's lack of the main components of movement. Taking one step has many steps in it. It's not just one. And so if you break it down, there's like several steps and you are not using all of them. It helps because you don't trip and you don't fall on your face. But in terms of rehabilitation, I would have to disagree to a certain degree with that because I've had those standard AFOs and I had to just get rid of them. And now I have a dynamic one, which has made a big difference. I still have developed atrophy, but I also have gained more of the natural motion of the movement of my leg and my ankle because of my KAFO. Mine is dynamic, and so it allows for my ankle to move and a little bit of natural dorsiflexion because it bounces kind of thing by itself. So that trains my brain and my leg in a different way. So
Yeah, that
thank
sounds
you
good.
for my
So there's no
KAFO.
yes, there's no tapping our feet when the music's on, is there?
I know. No.
Always tap the other one though.
The other one. And I'm a
Yeah,
music person. So hard for me.
I can imagine.
Anyways, so let's move forward. So I know that you also volunteer. You volunteer for everything. You must have a lot of free time.
Well, yes, I do have a lot of free time,
Great.
and I'm
Good
trying
for
to
you.
fill it with things that make
I'm
sense.
so jealous. Everything I do is great, but it's work. So you volunteer with the Restore, which is working together or affiliated with Habitat for Humanity. This store, what is it that they do?
They take donations from our wonderful community, and we go through it to see what is salvageable and what is worth selling, which there's a lot, believe it or not. Sometimes I look at this furniture, I'm like, why did these people donate this? This is gorgeous stuff. And we have a big, beautiful store and several volunteers. Some decorate the stores, like interior design the store. And I run the register and I do the processing in the back and work with the customers, finding little treasures for them. And every dollar spent in the store goes towards building the houses for people that have applied and been approved for the Habitat for Humanity houses. It's really cool. It's a great organization.
Oh, wait a minute. So the funds that they collect, they go towards building a house for. I need to look into that. You need to send me that information.
It is so cool. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was more like a goodwill kind of thing.
People donate and we sell it, and that money goes towards building the houses, which is, I think, pretty important. Homelessness is, it eats me to the core.
So wait a minute. So people will have to apply for a program. What is the name of that?
They do.
It's what?
I don't have
If you remember,
they
that's fine, but just for my own.
No, I mean, I think what it comes down to is that if they are approved, there are still a small mortgages on these houses that the people need to pay, but they're a lot less than a typical, going with a realtor to buy a house, and their stipulations are not as, what's the word, strict, let's say, as a bank's. I think people have a better chance of getting a mortgage with Habitat for Humanity, and the fees are much smaller.
Interesting. I didn't know nothing about it. So, off the camera, we're going to have a conversation.
Sure.
I need those details. So, I met you through a support group locally. Have you been part of the MS community in the group setting before?
Right. So when I was first diagnosed, I went to my first MS support meeting. That was in my early 20s. And I walked into this room and it scared the crap out of me. I was like, whoo, all these people are disabled. I mean, I was a young kid dealing with a very new diagnosis, and it was very scary. Now, since moving to North Carolina and wanting to meet people, not necessarily people with MS, but just, get myself out there into the community, I joined that support group that you and I met at. And now I kind of am one of those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
So I'm okay with it.
it's all
I'm more
right.
comfortable. And it's just, I mean, the last meeting that I was at, we were all standing around comparing our AFOs, and it felt great, So yeah, I like, MS is a weird disease, as you know. There's just so many different vast symptoms. Everybody's is different, but yet somewhat the same. We all seem to complain about the same things. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we deal with, right? The cognitive issues, the physical issues. So it's nice to surround people that get it.
hmm I've heard what you said earlier. I've heard that before a million times. I went into the room for my first support group meeting, and it scared the crap out of me, and I ran out of that room and never returned. That's very common, but I advocate for support groups. I'm a support group leader as well. I really feel that it might not be your crowd, but I advocate for the groups. I think that it's a great way of healing, connecting, staying sane. I can't think of anything more beneficial for a patient, even if, I mean, for other diseases as well. There's other support groups for other chronic diseases as well. But you can't think of anything better than, talking with people that you can relate to, that go through the same things. You don't have to explain yourself. They just get it.
Right. Especially with MS. I mean, this is my only disease, so I don't know about other diseases, but I know this is a weird one.
It's a very weird one.
It's all over the
I
place.
agree
Yeah.
100% for sure.
There's life outside of MS. It doesn't have to define who you are.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, there's so many things we can still do with our lives. We can live a full life. We can be productive, creative. Maybe we cannot do the same things we used to because what we wear, we are no more. But hey, we can find new ones, right? And
Exactly.
we can
Yes.
find ways of doing the things that we still like to do. And something that I learned is that I don't dwell on my diagnosis at all, but I try to focus in what I can still do, not so much when I cannot do what I cannot do anymore. And once you accept that and you look at it that way, you start to smile again, right? You handle the situation and your new reality better.
I had to open a door in 15 years. People
Hey,
are very
it
nice
comes
and
with
very,
perks. I have talked about this before. There are little perks here and there that come with being disabled. Like one of our guests said, when you are disabled and you go to a concert, you have the best seat in the house.
absolutely.
Nobody is
And
around you. You are in your own
they part
space.
ways.
It's
They
crazy.
part the ways for you to walk. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it. So I'm glad that you are on the same mindset because that's what we want to bring out, the positive side of living with a chronic disease like multiple sclerosis.
I can't thank you enough for putting this together so that we can shine the light on. We are just normal Joes out here
Exactly.
living with,
Yes. Yes.
doing the best we can. Yeah.
So I thank you. I'm glad that you were able to join and that you share, your positive way of looking at it and how you have found many other things to do after being diagnosed and you keep going and you live a happy, busy life in a way. You're not just staring at the walls complaining. You're doing something with what you got, and I think it's wonderful. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
All right, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. I'll see you next time, my friend.